2009. Old Louisville, Kentucky. A neighborhood frozen in time. Victorian mansions line the streets. Ornate ironwork. Stained glass windows. Buildings that have stood for more than a century. During the day, tourists walk these sidewalks. They admire the architecture. They photograph the grand homes. But at night, the neighborhood transforms. Long shadows, dimly lit streets, and behind the beautiful facades, secrets. In one of these Victorian mansions on South 4th Street, something terrible was about to happen. A man would disappear. For 7 months, his family would search. His friends would wonder. The police would investigate. And all that time, his body would be hidden, just feet away, beneath the floor, in a basement, concealed in a storage container. This is the story of Jamie Carroll, a hairdresser, a performer, a man who brought light into dark places until the darkness consumed him. This is Murder in Glitterball City. Louisville's LGBTQ community had a name for their world, their clubs, their shows, their performances. Glitterball City, a place where drag queens commanded stages, where performers dazzled under spotlights, where for a few hours each night anything was possible. Jamie Carroll was part of that world. James Carroll, 44 years old, everyone called him Jamie. By day, he was a hairdresser, talented, skilled with scissors and color. He made people feel beautiful. By night, he was something more, a performer. Part of the scene, part of the glitter. Those who knew him describe a gentle soul, creative, artistic, someone who lit up a room not with volume, but with presence. But Jamie's life wasn't all glitter and spotlights. He struggled with addiction, pills, sometimes harder things, the demons that many creative people fight, the darkness behind the performance. He'd been in and out of stable housing, working when he could, performing when opportunity arose, surviving. In the fall of 2009, Jamie needed a place to stay. He found a room in a Victorian mansion on South 4th Street, the kind of place that looks like it belongs in a different era. 3 stories, high ceilings, crown molding, the grandeur of Louisville's past. The rent was cheap, the location was good. Old Louisville, the heart of the LGBTQ community. The house was owned by 2 men, a couple, Joey Banis and Jeffrey Mundt. Banis was older, late 50s, a hairdresser like Jamie. But more than that, a performer himself, theatrical, someone who saw himself as an artist, someone who commanded attention. Those who knew Banis describe him as magnetic, charismatic, someone who could fill a room with his personality, but also someone with edges, a temper, a need for control. Jeffrey Mundt was different, younger, quieter, reserved. He was Banis's partner. They'd been together for years, living in that Victorian mansion, 2 men trying to make a life in a city that wasn't always welcoming. Jamie moved in sometime in November. At first, everything seemed fine. 3 hairdressers under one roof. 3 members of the community. 3 people who understood the struggle, the creativity, the need for acceptance. But something went wrong. Exactly what, we may never fully know. What we do know is this. In mid-November 2009, Jamie Carroll vanished. November 2009. Jamie's mother hadn't heard from her son in days. At first, she wasn't worried. Jamie's life was chaotic sometimes. The addiction, the irregular work schedule. Days could pass between calls. But then she received a text message from Jamie's phone. The words were wrong. The phrasing wasn't his. Something about it felt off. A mother knows her son's voice, even in text. She tried calling. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. She called Jamie's friends. Had anyone seen him? Had he mentioned any plans? No one had heard from him. She called the salons where he worked. Had he shown up? Was he scheduled? He'd missed shifts. Multiple days, no call, no explanation. Jamie's mother did what any mother would do. She reported him missing. The Louisville Metro Police began an investigation. They interviewed friends, co-workers, anyone who might know where Jamie went. They checked hospitals, shelters, the places someone struggling with addiction might end up. Nothing. They spoke with Joey Banis and Jeffrey Mundt, the men Jamie had been renting from. Banis told police Jamie had moved out. Suddenly, in the middle of the night. Something about going to stay with friends in another city. He seemed unconcerned, almost dismissive. Mundt said the same thing. Jamie had left. That's all they knew. The police had no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle, no witnesses to anything suspicious. In cases like this, when an adult disappears, when there's a history of substance abuse, the sad reality is that not all missing persons cases receive intensive investigation. People assume the person left voluntarily, that they're out there somewhere, that they'll turn up eventually. Jamie's mother didn't believe it. She knew her son. He wouldn't just vanish without a word. But weeks passed, then months. November became December. December became January. Winter turned to spring. Spring became summer. And still no Jamie. Inside the Victorian mansion on South 4th Street, life continued. Banis went to work, cut hair, performed, lived his life. Mundt did the same. The quiet partner, always in Banis's shadow. Beneath their feet, in the basement, Jamie Carroll's body lay hidden in a Rubbermaid storage container. 7 months. They walked over his grave every single day, June 17th, 2010. A summer evening in Louisville. Warm, humid. The kind of night when tempers can flare. Inside the Victorian mansion on South 4th Street, an argument erupted between Joey Banis and Jeffrey Mundt, the couple who had lived together for years, who had shared that house, who had kept a terrible secret. Something broke between them that night. At approximately 8:30 p.m., Jeffrey Mundt called 911. He reported that Joey Banis was attacking him, hammering on his door, threatening him. He feared for his safety. Louisville Metro Police responded. 2 officers arrived at the Victorian mansion. They found Mundt visibly shaken. He claimed Banis had been violent, that he needed protection. Standard domestic violence call. The officers separated the 2 men. Banis was placed in the back of a patrol car while police investigated. This should have been routine. A domestic dispute. Maybe an arrest. Maybe just separating the parties for the night. But something happened in that patrol car. Joey Banis began to talk. He told the officers there was a body in the basement. A man, dead, hidden for months. Jamie Carroll. Pause 2 seconds. The officers immediately called for backup. They secured the scene. They had Banis, now handcuffed, show them where. Down the basement stairs, into the darkness. The kind of basement that exists in old Victorian homes. Stone walls, low ceilings, damp. And there, concealed beneath debris, a large Rubbermaid storage bin. Inside, the remains of Jamie Carroll. 7 months he'd been there, hidden, decomposing. While life continued above, while his mother searched, while his friends wondered, while police investigated his disappearance, he'd been there the entire time. The crime scene investigators who arrived that night faced a grim task. The body had been in the basement for months. The decomposition was advanced. but the evidence of violence was unmistakable. Jamie Carroll hadn't died peacefully. He hadn't died accidentally. The autopsy would later reveal he had been killed with extreme violence. 6 stab wounds and a single gunshot to the head. Multiple attacks. Someone had wanted him dead, and they had made certain of it. His body had then been forced into the storage container, folded, compressed, hidden away like trash. Both Joey Banis and Jeffrey Mundt were arrested that night. Both were charged with murder, and both, almost immediately, began to tell different stories. In the interrogation rooms of the Louisville Metro Police Department, 2 men sat in separate spaces, telling 2 different versions of the same terrible night. The night of November 2009. What both men agreed on was this: there had been methamphetamine, a drug-fueled encounter, 3 men high and looking for escape. But what happened next? That's where the stories diverged completely. Joey Banis painted a picture of betrayal and violence. According to Banis, Jeffrey Mundt had become jealous, enraged. There had been some kind of sexual encounter involving all 3 men: drugs, confusion, paranoia. Banis claimed that Mundt, consumed by jealousy, had attacked Jamie with a knife. That Mundt had stabbed Jamie repeatedly. Banis portrayed himself as someone who tried to intervene, who tried to stop it. But it was too late. In his version, Mundt was the killer. Banis was just the panicked partner who helped conceal what his lover had done. He admitted to helping hide the body, to the basement, to the storage bin. He said he was protecting Mundt. That love and fear made him do terrible things. But Jeffrey Mundt told a completely opposite story. In Mundt's version, Joey Banis was the violent one, the aggressor. Mundt claimed that during the drug-fueled encounter, something triggered Banis's rage, an argument, a perceived slight, the paranoia that methamphetamine can induce. According to Mundt, Banis attacked Jamie, slit his throat, stabbed him, shot him. Mundt portrayed himself as a horrified witness, someone who was too afraid of Banis to intervene, too controlled by their relationship dynamic to stop what was happening. He claimed he only helped hide the crime because he feared Banis would kill him next if he refused. For 7 months, he said, he lived in terror, with the knowledge of what was in the basement, with nightmares of what Banis was capable of. 2 stories, completely contradictory. Each man casting himself as victim or reluctant participant. Each man pointing the finger at the other. The truth, as always, lay in the evidence. The autopsy revealed the extent of the violence. 6 stab wounds, a gunshot to the head. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. But which version was true, or was the truth somewhere in between? The justice system would have to decide. February 2013. More than 3 years after Jamie Carroll's body was discovered, after extensive investigation, evidence gathering, legal strategy, Joey Banis would stand trial first. But before the trial could fully proceed, something unexpected happened. Banis accepted a plea deal. Facing the possibility of the death penalty, facing a mountain of evidence, Banis agreed to plead guilty to murder in exchange for life in prison without the possibility of parole. No trial, no jury deliberation, a guilty plea. In exchange, the state would not seek his execution. Joey Banis was sentenced to life. He would die behind bars. But his guilty plea didn't answer the fundamental question. Was he the killer as Mundt claimed? Or was he covering for Mundt as he maintained? The plea deal meant we'd never hear all the evidence in open court, never hear cross-examination. never see a jury weigh the competing stories. Banis was convicted, but questions remained. 3 months later, in May 2013, Jeffrey Mundt faced his own trial. This time, there would be no plea deal. Mundt was going to fight the charges. The prosecution presented their case. They argued Mundt was either an equal participant in the murder or, at minimum, an accessory who helped conceal the crime for 7 months. They showed the jury evidence of the concealment, the storage bin, the basement, the lies told to police when Jamie was first reported missing. But the defense team had a strategy. They acknowledged Mundt's role in the cover-up. They couldn't deny that. The evidence was overwhelming. But they argued he didn't kill Jamie Carroll. They presented testimony about the relationship dynamic, Banis's controlling nature, the power imbalance, the fear Mundt lived under. They painted a picture of someone who made terrible choices after the fact, but not someone who committed murder. The jury deliberated, and when they returned, they delivered a split verdict: not guilty of murder. Jeffrey Mundt was acquitted of taking Jamie Carroll's life, but he was convicted of other serious charges: robbery, tampering with physical evidence, abuse of a corpse. The jury believed he helped conceal the crime, that he stole from Jamie, that he participated in hiding the body. But they didn't believe, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he participated in the killing itself. Jeffrey Mundt was sentenced to 8 years in prison, a significant sentence, but nowhere near the life sentence Banis received. And with time served and good behavior, Mundt would be eligible for a release much sooner than 8 years. Jamie Carroll was finally laid to rest. His family held a funeral, a proper goodbye, the chance to mourn that they'd been denied for 7 months. His friends in Louisville's LGBTQ community gathered. They shared stories. They remembered the glitter, the performances, the light Jamie brought into their world. But they also confronted difficult realities about the circumstances of his death: the drugs, the dangerous situations, the violence that can erupt when methamphetamine and paranoia mix. Louisville's drag community dedicated performances to Jamie's memory: the stages where he once performed, the clubs where he brought joy. Glitterball City remembered one of its own. Joey Banis remains in prison. He's in his 70s now. He will never leave. He still maintains he didn't kill Jamie, that he was protecting Mundt, that he took a plea deal only to avoid execution. Jeffrey Mundt served approximately 1 year of his 8-year sentence before being released in the early 2000s. He returned to Louisville, to the same streets where Jamie once walked, where Jamie once performed. He maintains he was a victim, controlled by fear, that he never hurt Jamie, that he only helped hide what Banis did. Perhaps that's true, perhaps not. A jury acquitted him of murder. But that doesn't mean everyone believes his version of events. The Victorian mansion on South 4th Street still stands. It's been sold multiple times since 2010. New owners, new lives. But the house remembers. The basement remembers. In February 2026, HBO premiered a documentary, Murder in Glitterball City. It brought renewed attention to the case. New audiences learned Jamie's story. The conflicting narratives were presented to millions, but no new answers emerged. The truth of what happened on that November night in 2009 during that drug-fueled encounter remains disputed. Was Joey Banis the killer, as Jeffrey Mundt claims? Was Jeffrey Mundt the killer, as Joey Banis maintains? Or is there a third truth somewhere between their two stories that neither man will ever admit? A jury acquitted Mundt of murder. But acquittal is not the same as innocence. It simply means the prosecution didn't prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The truth, like Jamie Carroll himself, remains buried. Pause 3 seconds. Old Louisville at night. The Victorian mansions stand silent, their ornate facades hiding whatever happens within. During the day, tourists admire the architecture. They take photographs. They marvel at the history. But they don't know all the stories, the secrets, the darkness that sometimes lives behind beautiful facades. Jamie Carroll's story is one of many. A life cut short. A family left with questions. A community left to mourn. But his story is also specific, unique. A reminder that behind every crime statistic is a real person. Someone who laughed, who created, who brought light into the world. Someone who deserved better than the death they received. The glitter fades. The performances end. The lights dim. But the memory remains. In a mother's heart, in friends' stories, in a community's collective memory, Jamie Carroll, hairdresser, performer, part of Glitterball City, gone but never truly forgotten. This was Murder in Glitterball City, where art and violence collided, where drugs and paranoia turned deadly, where two men blamed each other, where one was convicted of murder and one was acquitted, and where the complete truth remains just beyond our reach.